All right. Assessing the suitability and availability of criteria for software examination, two set of criteria. First, description criteria and trust service criteria. Remember, I talk of 5 trust service criteria: confidentiality, integrity, availability, security, and privacy. Then let's talk of description criteria. First, these are the criteria that describe the system and its components. Again, everything starts at the level of that system description, right? For example, say a cloud service provider may describe their system security, availability, and processes to show how they protect and handle data. What of the trust services criteria? These are the criteria for specific area like security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and availability. And that's what we talk of 5 trust services criteria. For example, for the security trust service, a cloud service provider will explain how their platform prevent unauthorized access to the system. Availability, we want to talk of high availability solution, backup. Do you also have a disaster recovery side and so on and so forth, right? And then confidentiality, you also want to talk what kind of controls they have to ensure that those controls are being, users' information are being protected. Remember when we spoke about confidentiality and the concept of encryption and so on. So that's exactly what this whole thing is all about. But let's talk of criteria origin. Remember, again, that's what says security is all about laws. Organization needs to abide or adhere to the different laws. And because of these guys, the ACPA, that's American Institute of Certified Public Accountant, they set these standards. And the most current version we have is the SSE 1822, right? The Assurance Service Executive Committee is responsible for creating and ensuring these criteria. For example, AICPA publishes the trust service criteria and make them publicly available so organizations can use them to assess their system. If you go to their website, that's something that you can check. Talking about security guideline, assessing the suitability as well as I'm getting a call, let me see. Oh boy. So talking about assessing the suitability and availability of criteria for SOC 2, in case of security guideline, we have protect data, prevent unauthorized access, implement security controls, and also maintain compliance, right? Then suitability and availability. Criteria are appropriate for use in SOC 2 examination. For example, if a company is undergoing a SOC 2 audit for security, the criteria for trust services criteria such as security will be used to evaluate how the company protects its data, right? What of availability? The criteria are publicly available, meaning anyone can access them, as we discussed already. A potential customer or third-party evaluator can access the AICPA criteria to see how their services providers meet this particular standard. So that's something that is out there. Then talking about service organization responsibility, we have management's role, responsible for defining and fulfilling the service commitment it makes to a client, ensure the system requirements are designed, implemented, and also controlled to meet this commitment. For example, say a service provider promises to keep data available 99.99%, that's availability we're talking about, of the time, and ensure that strong encryption are also in place to achieve or meet their goals. What of principal service commitment and system requirement? These are also commitments that have broad relevance to SOC 2 report users. Principal service commitment as well as system requirement. Relevance to SOC 2 report users and users entities. Say a commitment to guarantee system availability, such as maximum downtime per year, 4 hours, is typically a principal commitment before going into business dealings. And that's why you have an area where they talk of contract negotiation. What are the things that they're going to put in that contract for you all to negotiate? This speaks a lot, right? These are system requirements. These are the technical and operational aspect the service provider must implement to meet their commitment. Say, for example, to ensure system availability, The service provider might need backup servers as well as disaster recovery plans, right? Evaluating the reasonableness of service commitments and system requirements. Question to ask: do the requirement address key risks? For example, say if there's a logical access control system in place to prevent unauthorized access to the system, this will be necessary to mitigate cybersecurity risks, right? Are the commitment and requirement described enough in detail? Say that simply saying we comply with privacy law without even specifying the type of privacy law like GDPR or CCPA is a problem. So instead, it should detail the specific regulations such as GDPR, CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, and explain how they are also in adherence to that particular privacy law. So you can't just be more generic that we try to adhere to privacy law and you didn't specify, because this privacy law, they also have their requirements, right? So do they include necessarily legal and conceptual obligations? Say, for example, if a client must comply with GDPR, the service provider must outline how their system enable compliance, like ensuring data encryption. And that reminds me, if you are new to this particular playlist, make sure you go to the GDPR playlist and watch videos to understand better. Are the commitments complete? For example, say for a SOC 2 audit focusing on processing integrity, the service provider should clearly define accuracy, completeness, and authorization of data processing, correct? So determining whether service commitment and system requirement are reasonable. We have the auditor's duties. If the auditor believes the commitments or requirement are inadequate, they will discuss this concern with management. Very important, right? So auditor are there to do their job, but if they feel like, there's some form of or an issue, something that's not really transparent, not really clear, they need to be able to discuss their concern with the management as well. And if management does not revise or clarify the commitment, then the auditors also have the right to decline or withdraw themselves from the engagement. Say, for example, if a company claims to comply with GDPR rule, general data protection regulations, but doesn't provide details on how they secure customer data, auditor will ask for more information or withdraw. And if they ask that information and the service or clients not able to provide it, then they have the right to withdraw from it. Okay. So talking about commitment, a company promised to maintain 99.99% availability of its services. We are committed to doing this. And I'm a committed person. I'm highly committed. So whatever thing you say, make sure that that's what you're doing, right? So system requirement, to achieve this, they implement data backup as well as disaster recovery systems that ensure service can recover from unexpected events quickly, right? So in case of a natural disaster, whatever thing, they also have their disaster recovery side that they can easily restore and recover from that. What's of audit? Then the auditor reviews this system to ensure they align with a commitment and are detailed enough for users to trust. So whatever thing that you have, auditor are there to be able to check, perform their quality assurance, there's control. Make sure whatever assertion you must have written, your system description actually applies to what you are doing, and that they can continue with their assessment and issue their report. Otherwise, they will definitely withdraw from their report. But what's the key takeaway? Service auditor play a crucial role in ensuring that service commitments are realistic, clearly defined, and backed by right system commitments to address risks and legal obligations. So with that, next video, we will talk of requesting written assertion and representation from service organization management. What does that mean? And with this, I will definitely see you all in the next video.